The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Game Podcast Network is brought to you by Fantasy, a brand new offer for new customers. Play just $5, $50 bonus funds. Use the promo code SGPN. And welcome, everybody, to the Tennis Game Podcast here on the Sports Game Podcast Network. It's currently early Thursday morning, around 1 a.m. Eastern, here on September 4th. I'm Rose always, Scott Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to switch gears for a women's episode. It's officially U.S. Open women's semifinal time, so we're going to break down the two matchups taking place on Thursday. Before we get into that, though, a brief reminder to support the show by like subscribing on YouTube, and a reminder, you also have a rating and review on Spotify and Apple. So podcast available either on audio format only or video format too. You can watch it either way. Point is, though, don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a rating and a review on Spotify or Apple. Pause, check out the merch store on the SGPN website. We have a lot of great merchandise, and we have a great promo code right now for a discount. So check out the merch store for Tennis Gambling Podcast merch, NBA Gambling Podcast merch, MLB Gambling Podcast merch, College Experience, bunch of shows with the network, and pretty much all of them have merch. Check out the merch store, but a reminder, if you use the code FOOTBALL at checkout, get 25% off everything in the merch store. So make sure to use the promo code FOOTBALL at checkout. Plus, reminder, you have the free roll football contest, which is back. It's free to enter, and you're picking every NFL game ATS. $3K for first place, $4K if you're a Patreon member. Sign up at sportsgamebox.com/freeroll. Plus, we have a great Survivor contest, $100 entry fee, winner take all, at sportsgamebox.com/survivor to get in on the action. So, starting off with the actual game plan, we're going to do the lock and dog recap. However, we are not going to dive into the men's quarterfinal matches. We're going to save that for the men's semifinal episode. So instead, we're going to get into the women's quarterfinal recap. For that, though, reminder for the actual lock and dog. Decent episode. Did win the lock. Did lose the dog. On the men's side, for the quarters, did win center straight sets at -125. Insane price. Bet365 was hanging. I think it closed at 165. Was really never a doubt. You could argue the second set was somewhat close. Musetti, I thought, played pretty well, but either way, it didn't matter as Sinner won in straight sets, so nice win there for the lock. For the dog, pretty annoying. We had a parlay, which was a really, really close loser, but it didn't matter because it lost anyway. So we had a parlay. We had Djokovic in straight sets with the over 29.5 games in the Alcaraz-Lehecka match. Lehecka needed to hold serve one more time, had 30 love, missed a volley, fell apart, and got broken. Once again, we needed one to hold from a pretty good server who was up 30 love to win, and he did not. So I picked up a loss there for the dog. At least the lock won, as Sinner won comfortably. So either way, I picked up a split for the last episode. Now, for the women's, once again, matches in the quarters, overall, I would say it was a pretty underwhelming collection of matches. First of all, there were only 3 of them instead of 4, because Vondrousova got injured in practice right before her match, actually, against Sabalenka, and she quit. So Vondrousova, who's been injured constantly, got injured again. Very unfortunate. Was supposed to be a fun matchup on paper, and it didn't happen, as Sabalenka got a bye into the semis, but either way, that's probably not a good omen for how the actual round was going to go. You saw Pegula, who beat Krejcikova in straight sets. Not a surprise there. Krejcikova pulled off a miracle and beat Tauson, fighting off a bunch of break points en route to winning in 3. And she played fine, but Pegula was in great form, and Pegula was able to win in straight sets. But once again, you had one match instead of 2 on the card for Tuesday, which kind of sucked, but it's how it goes sometimes. Vondrousova just can't stay healthy, so either way, she ended up having to retire. Moving on to the matches that we ended up seeing on the card for Wednesday. These were more competitive, but still not too much drama. As you saw, Anisimova beat Swiatek in a pretty shocking upset there in straight sets. She was plus 333. She won in straight sets, and once again, it was the first time they played since the 6-0, 6-0 Wimbledon final, which went, of course, in favor of Swiatek. But either way, ended up seeing Anisimova get some revenge, looked good, and she looked like she was in control for most of the match. Then she won on a lucky net court at the end, but either way, point is she played very well. Swiatek was kind of all over the place, a lot of errors, and the serve kind of let her down, especially on the double fault there into the second set. But a great job by Anisimova. A round of applause for her as she ended up getting revenge after one of the most embarrassing outcomes of all time in tennis, and she was able to win the match in straight sets. So nice job by her. pulling off a shocker and getting the job done en route to making the semifinals. For the match that was the match of the round, very low bar, still a straight set win, but the Osaka-Mukova match was very competitive, and Osaka did win 6-4, 7-6. Mukova was actually serving for the second set. She ended up choking, and then you ended up seeing her have 2 break points to get a break lead again. Did not convert. Osaka dominated the breaker as she led 6-2 and eventually did win 7-3. Osaka's been great. Props to her. Back to the semis for the first time in a while, and we'll see if she can finish the job off. But either way, main takeaway for the round, pretty underwhelming. I think that's a pretty, once again, fair assessment of the actual matchups, where the Osaka and Mukova match was definitely high level. Besides that, I thought the Anisimova performance was high level. Swiatek wasn't really that great. But either way, point is we had 3 matches instead of 4, and all of them ended in straight sets. So not too much drama, but still a bit of an unexpected collection of players for the semis. We know Sabalenka being here is not a surprise. Besides that, Pegula had a very easy path. She is very highly ranked, but I think we all know she's capable of losing to anybody, but she made it through. It's a good job by her. Anisimova, I think most people did not pick to beat Swiatek. I know I didn't. We didn't talk about the actual matches, but I had Swiatek to win the quarter as my only choice, and that did not work out. But good job by her. And Osaka, I mentioned in the women's preview show, I thought had a great draw. Could not pick her based on the actual, I'd say, lack of Grand Slam results over the last couple of years. And she proved me wrong. So good for her. But for the actual recap, though, for the women's outrights, overall not great but not terrible. We did have Pegula to win the second quarter at a big price, which helped out. Before the quarter outrights, we did have Sabalenka at plus 114. Had Rybakina as well, but either way, point is Sabalenka got the job done there in the first quarter. Second quarter was the big hit for us. We had Pegula at 5-1. Mboko did lose in the first round, which once again aged horribly. But Pegula got the job done at 5-1, so thank you for that. Third quarter didn't work out, though. We had Goff at 260, Keys at 370. And the heartbreaker, you could have hedged it, though, if you wanted to. We had Mukova at plus 2,000, which would have been a really, really nice hit, but I think we all expected Osaka to win the match on Wednesday. I know I did. I had a couple people in my DMs asking me what my thoughts were for the match, and I picked Osaka in straight sets. So I ended up hedging. It worked out for me, but Mukova plus 2,000 was a rogue line on Bet Rivers. Hopefully you got somewhere near that. I saw some people had 11-1. Either way, I thought that Osaka would end up winning. Mukova went to 3 in every match prior to the Osaka matchup. She had some injury issues, and we saw some flare-ups in that match against Osaka. I thought she was fine overall, but I was just questioning if she'd be able to actually have enough in the tank to beat Osaka, and she did not. But still, plus 2,000 was a great sweat. Didn't work out. Hopefully you hedged, but either way, Mukova gave it a good run and just could not get the job done. And once again, fourth quarter, we had Swiatek at minus 165, which did not get there, as she ended up losing to Anisimova in a straight sets in the quarterfinal. So could have swept potentially. Didn't work out, though, with Mukova and with Swiatek. It's fine. We'll move on into the semis. Now, looking at the actual event so far, once again, I would say that the event has been pretty, I'm trying to think of the right word here. I'm going to say balanced is the word I'll go with. I feel like there's been some upsets and some favorites winning. Of course, you had some shockers, which was Keys losing immediately, hitting 89 unforced errors. You had a bunch of, once again, Cinderellas who had some okay runs and then lost immediately against good competition. But still, point is, we have a decent amount of chalk and a decent amount of, I'd say, solid talent that was not expected to get here, mostly Osaka and Anisimova, of course. But I do think there's a lot of talent left in the field. There are no full, I'd say, buys, so to speak. No offense to Felix on the men's side, but there are no minus 2,000 favorites in the women's, once again, semis, which is nice to see. So you are looking at one decent favorite, one small favorite, and we'll see what happens. But overall, they should be 2 competitive matchups on paper, and we'll go from there. Anyway, time to move on into the breakdown of the semis. Before we get into the breakdown, the reminder brought to you by our sponsor, which is, of course, MyBookie.ag. Use them to bet on football and everything else that they have. They have a prop builder for different sports, including soccer, WNBA, NBA. They even have hockey during the season. Check out the prop builder for the options they have. They also have a big motto, which we can agree with: bet on anything, anywhere, anytime. You can also use crypto for deposits and payouts. When you sign up for a new account, use code SGPN to get a 100% bet back bonus of $500 for new customers. That's why we have the G promo code SGPN. We're also brought to by Rhythm, because you can check them out for the NFL and for college football. Also check them out for the baseball, for WNBA, golf, you name it. Point is, they also have a brand new leaderboard with weekly cash prizes just for tracking your bets in the app. Track 5 bets of the same type from any model you build, and you can win $1K. You also can check out the platform for free for a week by using the promo link that we have with Rhythm. Go to sportsgamepodcast.com/rhythm to get your 7-day free trial. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the women's quarterfinals. Time to move on into the 2 matches taking place on Thursday. A reminder for the schedule: the women play the semis on Thursday, the men play the semis on Friday, women's title match is on Saturday, men's title match is on Sunday. So we're alternating from this point forward, just to keep it, I'd say, once again, clear. So men will be coming out after the women's matches tomorrow, or technically, once again, it could be the 4th or the 5th. We'll see. But they'll be coming out after the women's matches go final. So keep that in mind, but there will be an episode of the men's semifinals tomorrow. Anyway, so for the preview, starting off with the biggest favorite on the card here, we have Sabalenka, who is a massive favorite. She's minus 300. Once again, not Sinner over FAA favorite, but still a favorite, minus 300. Pegula's at plus 245. Actually, a revenge match for Pegula. Faced off in the U.S. Open, and we ended up seeing Sabalenka win in the final last year. So we'll see if Pegula can get some revenge. We saw Anisimova get revenge for Wimbledon. Maybe you see Pegula get the job done here in this one. Now, for the pricing, you have Sabalenka minus 3.5 games here, minus 133. Pegula plus 3.5 games here is plus 113. The over-under is set at a 21.5. Overs and unders basically minus 110. And for the set spread, Sabalenka in straight sets is minus 102. You have Pegula to win a set of minus 128. The over 2.5 sets is plus 143. Now, for the head-to-head, they faced off before a decent amount, and Sabalenka has been quite good in the head-to-head. Looking at the recent meetings, Sabalenka has been mostly dominant, I'll put it that way. So in their careers, Sabalenka and Pegula have faced off, once again, a decent amount. Sabalenka has won she's won 3 straight, and on top of that, it has been rather lopsided. So 3-1, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1. She's 7-2 lifetime against Pegula, and 7-1 in the last 8. Said before, faced off in the U.S. Open last year, Sabalenka won in straight sets, 7-5, 7-5, to win the title. Faced off again this year, and Sabalenka did win again in straight sets. That was in Miami, and Sabalenka did win 7-5, 6-2. So the point of Sabalenka is a resounding favorite, as she should be, because she's owned the head-to-head. Pegula hasn't really played anybody. I'll get into that in a second. But the point is, Sabalenka really does not have I'll put it this way. I think Sabalenka's biggest opponent is herself, and I do think that Sabalenka, when she loses, it's mainly because of self-destructing. I think we can all agree, based on the talent on paper, Sabalenka's clearly the favorite to win the event, and we'll see what happens. I'll say that. I'm not going to dismiss Anisimova or Osaka or even Pegula, because they're all very talented players. But I think we all know that Sabalenka, unless she implodes again, should win the title. I'll say that. Now, for this actual matchup, I do want to point out the actual schedule, or the path so far for both players. Sabalenka does have an edge with the walkover in the quarters because Vondrousova didn't show up. Now, for the path, ended up beating Masarova in the first round in straight sets, beat Kudermetova, ended up beating Leylah Fernandez in straight sets, and beat Buxa in straight sets, and then had a walkover. So she's not dropped a set yet. Fernandez, we know, did win a title in D.C., It was miraculous because she should have lost to Rybakina, but still, pointed she did beat a good, once again, hardcore player, former finalist in the event. But besides that, pretty easy path so far, including the walkover. For Pegula, kind of the same story. So she ended up beating Sharif in the first round in straight sets, beat Blinkova in straight sets, beat Azarenka in straight sets, beat Lee in straight sets, and beat Krejcikova in straight sets. So both players not really the toughest draws so far. Krejcikova, I know, has won multiple Grand Slams. I think we all know that it would have been a pretty favorable draw for her anyway if you're getting Krejcikova or Tauson in the quarters of a Grand Slam. And Pegula dominated every step of the way. So both players look great. Both players have been clean so far in the event, not dropping a set. And now the question is, does either player potentially slip up with better competition on the horizon. Now, I do think Sabalenka is a very solid favorite, but do I think that she's capable of imploding? Of course I do. I think Sabalenka's definitely volatile at times. The moment you trust her completely, she'll let you down. That's how I look. Now, I see Van saying that Osaka would beat Sabalenka in the final. Maybe. But I guarantee you that Sabalenka would be the betting favorite in the final, and that was my point. She will be a decent favorite either way. Osaka's barely favored against Anisimova. Sabalenka will be favored in the final if that is the matchup, or if she's against Anisimova, she will be the favorite. Now, I do think for the matchup in itself, both players with the firepower that they each possess. Pegula's hitting the ball very cleanly. We know Sabalenka, though, has the firepower to take away the timing from Pegula, and that can force Pegula into mistakes. Not to mention the fact that after losing the U.S. Open final last year, this is a big chance at revenge. You could argue the pressure is all on Sabalenka because she won this matchup last year. Every single event she's in is a win or failure, basically, in Grand Slams. However, Pegula's never actually won a Grand Slam before. You could argue that the moment could be bigger for her in big spots. We'll see. Does Pegula show up with house money, or does she feel the pressure and she ends up potentially struggling, like Fritz did, for example, getting broken into the first service game against Djokovic? I know that was the quarters of the semis, but you could argue that having the home crowd advantage can be a disadvantage at times if you start off very tight. I do think Sabalenka is going to win. However, I will give Pegula props. I'm not going to pick an ass-kicking here. I think Sabalenka will win, but I see it being close. I see a call from Hydro with the team total over for Sabalenka. I agree with you. I think you're looking at what should be a pretty, I'd say, competitive matchup either way, and I do think that the over of games for the match is definitely appealing for this one. So I mentioned a second ago that the head-to-head has been very in favor of Sabalenka, but there have been a lot of 7-5 and 7-6s in there, so you might be looking at one competitive set and maybe one straightforward one, kind of like what we saw in Miami earlier this year, where Sabalenka won, but it was 7-5, 6-2, one straight set win for Sabalenka, one very competitive set, Pegula rolls over, and Sabalenka dominates second set. That could sabotage the over. That's possible. Once again, in that Miami match, that match did land 20, despite having a 7-5. So the full match over could be a bit tricky. I like the team total over for this one. I'm not going to officially write off Pegula to win a set, though, and the fact that she's favored to win a set in this matchup at minus 128, I find fascinating. I think that Sabalenka to win in straight sets at around even money is intriguing. I'll put it that way. Once again, the head-to-head's been quite heavily in favor of Sabalenka, and Pegula, for the head-to-head, has also not won a single set against Sabalenka I said before they faced off 9 times. In 7 of the last 8 meetings, Pegula has not won a single set. So I find the even money, give or take, for Sabalenka straight sets to be appealing. Now, you might argue Pegula's been in great form. It's finally time for her to get some revenge. Last year's match was competitive. Being 7-5, 7-5, Pegula can maybe win the set and even the match. Maybe. But for pricing, I think Sabalenka straight sets to even money is appealing to me. And the fact that Pegula has only won a set, sorry, actually misspoke. She won in straight sets in the WTA finals 2 years ago. So once again, you're looking at Pegula, who has won a set twice in their 9 career meetings. That's not really good enough for me to trust her to win a set in this one. So I do think Sabalenka straight sets even money is a good price. I'd argue that it should be the favorite. If you want to argue Pegula is going to win a set here, you can. But minus 128 feels pretty juicy for a player that's been owned in the head-to-head against this person. So I don't mind Sabalenka in a competitive straight set win. I don't mind maybe a 7-5, 6-4, something like that. It's close. It's competitive. Pegula has some chances, and Sabalenka eventually wins. Kind of like the Osaka match against Mukova, where you feel like it could go either way, but you feel like one player is just a step ahead in pretty much the majority of the script for the match. I see that being the case here, as Mandy's pointing out. I think you're looking at a good spot where Pegula gives it a run, it's not good enough, and she loses in straight sets. If she wins a set, good for her. I can't bet that at minus 128. Give me Sabalenka in straight sets around even money as my thoughts for that one, but I also don't mind the over, and I also don't mind the team total for Sabalenka in that one. I see Adam mentioning straight sets is minus 120 on Bet365. I see BetOnline does have minus 102, so minus 102 is available if you have that book offshore, but shop around, you might find a better number. Anyway, moving on to the next matchup, the one that's supposed to be more competitive based on the lines. Basically a pick 'em. For this one, you have Osaka, who's around minus 118. Anisimova is around even money. For the spread, you have minus half a game for Osaka, plus half a game for Anisimova. The over-under is at 21.5. The over is juiced to minus 120. The under is minus 104. Now, they faced off twice before, and it has been, I'll put it this way, it's been balanced so far. 2 meetings, Anisimova did win both, but one of them was very competitive in the Australian Open. Other was on clay about 2-3 years ago when Osaka wasn't really in great form. The point is, Anisimova is 2-0. Do I factor that in too much? Not really. Osaka has turned the clock back. She's looked very good, and we've not seen her play this well in a long time. You could argue she played this well when she made the final in Canada before no-showing the last 2 sets against Mboko, or even when she lost to Swiatek in the French Open, and she had a match point or two. But the point is, Osaka was in a rough place for years, and now it feels like she's finally finding some of that Grand Slam title form again, and because of that, she's favored. So head-to-head might matter, might not matter. I'm going more along the lines of not mattering. But Anisimova is 2-0. The only hardcore meeting, though, was in the Australian Open, and that was a final set tiebreak back in 2022, I believe. So point is, you're looking at Osaka being favored, and the path has been impressive, I'll put it that way. Now, she beat Minin in the first round straight sets, beat Baptiste in straight sets, beat Kasatkina in 3, beat Goff, killed Goff in straight sets, and beat Mukova in straight sets. Anisimova, though, did beat Swiatek, beat Haddad Maia, who I'm still kind of shocked made it all the way to the round of 16, beat Christian, beat Joint, who I think is pretty solid as well, and beat Burrell. So both players look pretty good, and I do think you're looking at what should be a pretty even matchup on paper. Now, Sabalenka, I argued, should win in straight sets based on price. For this matchup, I see a true coin flip here. I think it's a very, very tough call. Now, people will go with Osaka because once she makes it to the semis, she's undefeated, and she tends to pull off the title run once she makes it to the final stages of these Grand Slams. However, once again, that was years ago, and we'll see if she can get the job done. Now, Anisimova does have a lot of confidence beating Swiatek, who beat her love and love, 0-0 double bagel in Wimbledon. So she should be in a great state mentally, and that could be the main factor of this matchup, because Osaka had a couple of moments where she got dicey in the second set against Mukova, broke back to save the second set, but still, Osaka had a couple of moments where she missed some easy points, and she ended up leaving the door open for Mukova, and Mukova just couldn't capitalize on it. I think Anisimova will be more opportunistic for this one. Now, having said that, do I think Anisimova right now, eye test, is looking like the better player compared to Osaka? I really think it's very close. I'm going to go with Osaka in this one. Do I feel great about it? No. I think the odds are right. I think that you could argue that the Sabalenka match, the odds should be a bit shorter based on Pegula being in good form and based on Pegula being a top 10 player in the world. I get all that. But I do think Sabalenka at 300 feels a bit disrespectful, even though I am picking straight sets for her. I do think these odds feel right. I think that Osaka should be a slight favorite based on the history that she's had of dominance in semifinals, etc., and Anisimova maybe having a mental letdown after beating Swiatek in a very, I'd say, emotional win for her after the embarrassment she suffered against her in Wimbledon. So I actually like the line here. I think it's accurate. The problem is, do I think it's that straightforward where Osaka wins and we just move on to minus 120? I don't. I think it's very, very close. I think that Osaka and Anisimova might have a full-on war here. So I like the over. I'm not going to get too creative here. I'm not going to try to pick a winner based on betting. I'd go with Osaka if I had to pick, but I do think that the over is how I'll go about it. Both players look great. The ball striking's been solid. I can see each player having a slip-up, maybe punting a set away, and I can see a breaker as well. A couple ways you can end up getting over this number. But I think 21.5 with juice to the over sounds right, and I think you could argue it sounds a bit short. I understand women's tennis does tend to feature less tie breaks than men's tennis because you get more breaks of serve. But I do think you're looking at what should be a pretty competitive matchup start to finish. Might go 3 sets, might be a war. But I do think either player could win. Give me the over. I see a very nice competitive matchup between two relatively even match players, which can result in drama and over. So give me over in this one for my preview for this match. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the preview of the semis. Time to move on into the Lock and Dog picks. For an Into the Lock and Dog, the reminder brought to you by our sponsor, which is Arctic Fantasy. WrestleMania happening all summer long. You're running out of time, though. Season does start today, actually, as you have the Eagles taking on the Cowboys. So if you want to get in on best ball, you're running out of time. So keep that in mind. But there are no arguments about trades. There's no waivers. And a reminder, you also use Underdog for pick'em entries, which are still active once the season does start. Went to 500 times your entry. They have tennis options as well for breaks of serve, for aces, double faults, you name it. They even have spreads and totals. So check out Underdog for the pick'em entries for tennis. And a reminder, they have a brand new offer for new customers. Use the, once again, new deal. Play just $5, $50 in bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is a great exchange, number one exchange in America for sports prediction markets. And a reminder, since it is exchange, you know you're getting the best prices in the market. Available in 35 plus states. Download the Novig app. Give $50 when you do spend $5. If you use the promo code SGPN, so get on the actual Novig, use the promo code SGPN. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Game Podcast. Finish going through the semifinal matchups on the women's side in the U.S. Open. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. For the lock, I'm going to go with Sabalenka. Team total over 12.5 at minus 105. I mentioned it before. I know that Hydra mentioned it in the comment section. I did like this play quite a bit. Caesars has minus 105 for the team total over. I saw minus 120 on DraftKings. Shop around, but Caesars does have the best line right now at minus 105. She's been in great form in this event. So has Pegula. Both players have not dropped a set yet, but despite not dropping a set, Sabalenka's had a bunch of 7-5 and 7-6s because she has gone over this team total in 3 of her first 4 matches in the event. Of course, not including the Vondrousova walkover. But still, the point is she has not dropped a set, but still going over this number. Couple of scripts. There's a chance that she wins in straight sets with a 7-5 or 7-6. There's a chance that she wins in 3 or even loses in 3. I do think you're seeing at least one close set, and I think that can result in Sabalenka going over this number easily. I'll take that as my play. Not to mention the fact that the head-to-head, despite being very in favor of Sabalenka, has featured a lot of close sets because you have seen her go over this team total in 4 of the last 5 head-to-head meetings. Went over in Miami with 7-5 in the first set this year. Last year in the final, 7-5, 7-5. I think Sabalenka should win, but I do think there will be at least one set that goes distance and that can get her over this number, whether she wins or even loses closely. So give me Sabalenka, team total over 12.5 at minus 105 as my lock. For my dog, I'm going to go with the other match with Anisimova and Osaka. Said before, total's 21.5. Give me the alt total. Give me 22.5 at plus 110. That's on Bet Rivers. Now, both players have been great so far in the event. They've only dropped 1 set apiece. Both players, though, look pretty equal so far based on form. A lot of firepower, very solid ground strokes. It's not fluky that they're here. They've been really, really good. We saw the Osaka match against Mukova end in straight sets, still landed 23. I can see a similar story there. Maybe it goes 3, but we saw them face off in a hard court setting in the Grand Slam before. It was dated, but went to a final set tiebreak in the Aussie Open. Point is, I see a close match. I think that unlike the Sabalenka and Pegula match, I really don't see any lopsided sets here. I see a very close war between 2 players that are going to hit the crap out of the ball, and you might see a lot of drama and a lot of stress involving both players. And I do think that a 3-set war is a possibility, but I also think having a straight set war is realistic too, with either play winning. So once again, I am going to go with the alt over for that match as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock's going to be on Sabalenka, team total over 12.5 at minus 105. That's on Caesars. For the dog, I'm going to go with the over, alt over 22.5 in the Anisimova match against Osaka at plus 110 at Bet Rivers. That's going to wrap it up for the show. We're back once again for the men's semis in about a day. See a question, by the way, from Mr. Wipeout for WNBA. For the record, I will be doing a WNBA show in the morning with Terrell, so I'm going to save my WNBA picks for then. But once again, check out the WNBA show in the morning. Once again, find me on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.